Welcome to another episode of Filmmaker's Corner, brought to you by the Primal Group. My name is Michael Bachoch, and I'm here with Peter Murphy, Connor Hack, and Alexandria Collins.
Hey, hey.
What's up, Alex?
Welcome.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Where do I begin? I am a writer, director, and actress. I've been in LA about 3 years, and I lived in New York before this. Originally from Tallahassee, Florida. I'll just give you all the locations I've been in my life.
Hitting all the
Paris,
coasts.
Montreal, everywhere. Yeah, I've been writing and directing since college and acting since I was a kid. And I've done a lot of stuff. Well, yeah. That's where we'll start.
Yeah. And I met you through our friend Dominic.
Yeah.
We did little kind of filmmaking exercises in his apartment in West Hollywood. And I met you first then.
You know, I thought I met you in your backyard for Halloween, but you're right. We did that.
That was the second time. The first time we shot a little fake commercial thing.
That was
Remember
that I remember that where Jonathan was like robbing my apartment.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
was the
That was it.
idea.
Yep.
He like robbed it and cleaned it.
Uh-huh.
And then I came back. Yeah.
Yeah.
When
and
was
then this was a couple years ago now.
This is like a
Yeah.
college short or like just post, just
It
shortly?
might as well have been, but it was not.
Yeah, it was just basically our friend Dominic was doing like kind of these creative Sundays where he would just have different creatives come over and they would just to kind of get the juices flowing. We would hang out and just let's think of something to shoot today
Yeah.
and just sort of just to kind of continue executing content and like practicing stuff and meeting new people. That's how I met her, obviously her.
Yeah.
Like film cell mentality, you know, like
Yeah.
build each other up and like build the craft, build the skill.
Yeah. So what can we create out of the space that we're in? You know, what can we use and then just shoot something and edit it that same day or edit it that weekend, I think.
I think
Jeez.
It's like
really
really quick.
that weekend,
Yeah.
pretty quick.
Yeah.
So in a couple of days you could turn something over.
Like 48-hour film festival every weekend.
Kind
Yeah.
of.
How long did you guys
And
do that
sometimes,
for?
and sometimes he would just have writer friends over and just write stuff and try to brainstorm stuff and
Damn.
or just get work done. Like some days he would just have a lot of emails to send and it was just sort of a neutral space for people to sort of buckle down and like get work. Just a productive space, I guess, for LA creatives. And it was fun. And then obviously, so we met, and then how long between that and Goals and Shit was how much time?
Not super long. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, we shot Goals and Shit. We did like a proof of concept for it in February of 2018. And so I met you like fall 2017. And I wrote out like 10 episodes of the series. Goals and Shit, just so everyone knows, was a digital series that first started out as like this kind of alternate universe, like jumping between dimensions story about this woman who's a serial entrepreneur. And so we shot some of it in the desert and at a bar, and then it evolved into being about a woman who had a lot of privilege and then had her identity kind of fall apart because she realized that she's not as privileged as she thought she was, and then she has to rebuild herself from the ground up. But the first idea was about, you know, me and my best friend kind of jumping between dimensions as I kind of decide who I'm going to be. And so maybe 3 or 4 months, and then we shot that proof of concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And that was a long process because we shot a proof of concept, and then I think a year later we shot a new one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
is
Connor's
fun.
you've been on the project so I've known you since 2017. So yeah, 2020, it's been a while.
Yeah.
But we shot a second proof of concept and a teaser for a crowdfund that we launched in October 2018. And so the show was a completely different show, right?
Yeah.
From the first thing that we shot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That was a fun process, though. And check out Goals and Shit on Instagram. Is that what it's called?
Goals and Shit series on Instagram. We're on YouTube now, Goals and Shit. Website, goalsandshit.com. But yeah, so we've released like maybe 20 episodes. And
yeah, I was going to say, so originally it was kind of this like pilot concept, and then it changed into sort of these little like vignettes, little bite-sized things to throw online.
Yeah.
But it's like a world building little series. It's pretty interesting how you've been releasing it.
We've punched that now, so let's unpack it.
Let's
like
do it.
what is this show about? Tell us what the show's about. I want to know.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is the first concept was a bit removed from my own story. And so we got feedback from the proof of concept that people liked it, but they just didn't know what the meat of it was. And so I shelved it for a bit. And then I talked to a writer friend of mine who was like, well, what do you really want to say with this? And when I first moved to LA, I'd just come out of New York where I had a lot of immediate success. I booked several international commercials. I never really had to work at all. I just lived off of residuals.
And this is as an actor, right?
As an actress, yeah. So I've done commercials for Crest, Hilton, Apple, tons of, brands, and some co-star work on television and film. And so that was my New York life. Then I got to LA and was like, it's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to kill it out here. I'm going to be a star. And that's not what happened. I got here.
Spoiler.
And spoiler alert. Got here and realized like, oh shit, you have to like work at it. And I'm not as special as I thought I was. What? I can't just live off of talent alone. And so I talked to a writer friend of mine who was like, that sounds like your show. Like you're having to decide who you're going to be now when you realized that what you thought your life was is not actually what it's going to be. So I was like, wow, that's exactly what the show is, goals and shit. I had the title for the show long before the reality of what like the show was set in. And so goals and shit just really worked for that. And so, yeah, it's about a woman who's in the tech space. She's a project manager. And is riding high and then gets fired and decides to, instead of actually facing her own demons, create another business as a way to basically validate herself in the space that she's used to. But her own journey is her having to become herself and love herself for who she is outside of external validation. And that's what the entire show would be. But we did crowdfund for it, did really well.
What'd you guys use?
Seed and Spark.
And how was your experience using that? Because we actually used Seed and Spark for Parallax.
Cool.
We were able to raise about $12,000, and it was really successful. And
Dope.
I mean, I'm personally not a huge fan of crowdfunding, and so to have a successful campaign was like a really cool hey, we did something right and it worked. I mean, so you obviously were successful. What was your experience using them and using them as a platform?
Yeah, we raised $20K on that. I'm glad that I did not know everything that crowdfunding entailed before I did it because it was so much, so much energy. It's a
full-time job.
Yeah, it's a full-time job. But it was great. We raised the money. We got a lot of support for it. It was a good exercise in putting yourself out there and not really caring too much what someone thinks about it, but just saying like, I believe in this enough.
How shameless did you get?
Pretty shameless.
What was the bottom of the barrel? I'll share my bottom of the barrel.
I mean, I was calling people, because we wanted to reach certain goals, and so I was calling people that I hadn't spoken to in a minute, and being like, "Hey, friend,
the worst part
me?
of the whole thing.
I love you. Like, can you give me $250?" And people did it. The interesting thing is, people that I have no real connection to would give thousands of dollars.
Really?
And the people that I knew super well, that I know have money and that have new Porsches, would give $100.
See, I had a similar experience, but like the people with like the Porsches, they just gave nothing. They didn't reply to my emails, my calls. I see you guys. No, I'm just kidding. But it was a very similar experience where it was just like, you're reaching through on Facebook and I'm literally like scrolling through old Facebook accounts like,
yes,
who would support my film career? Like, who would actually be interested and give a shit? Because I mean, like, especially now, but even a year ago, giving money to like independent movies is just like, why the hell? Why would you? Like,
you really just have to specifically believe in that person. And that's where I realized that all of the work I'd done to build up my own identity as a filmmaker, as an actor, would pay off because people then associate you with that thing. Like, oh, you do this. We can believe that you're going to achieve this. At that point, I'd done a few short films that had gone to festivals, and people had seen my work. And as an actor, people have seen what I've done.
You have some
so
credibility.
so they could believe that, like, okay, if I give you this money, you're actually going to make a thing, and you're not going to like quit halfway through, which is part of the reason that even though the kind of full creation of goals and shit was, years in the making, and it's been from 2017 to 2020, it was worth it because I finished the thing that I said I was going to do.
How often do you think these like Indiegogo and Kickstarter projects, or Seed and Spark even? I think Seed and Spark's a little more strict. I think they, but like how often do you think these projects get financed and then they're like, a couple days into production, they're just like, nah, it's too hard. We don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. Like,
well, definitely a couple, a lot.
You think so?
Yeah. I would think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's just when it can be discouraging. Creating anything is a marathon. We don't get into this because we're like, oh, we're going to have overnight success. I mean, some people do, but it definitely takes energy that, in the 12th hour, you're like, okay, I have to make this happen. And there's no one else cheering me on. It's just me saying, I believe in this enough to see it through.
Yeah. I feel like most of those campaigns too, everyone comes out with some outlandish goal. Like we want $50,000 and they get $2,000. I think that's super discouraging. So
they've shot one short film before and it's like, we're trying to raise $3 million for our feature film about werewolves in rural Missouri.
Yeah. I did have some people that were like, you should raise 30 or 40K. And I was like, I know my bandwidth. Okay.
Right.
That's good.
I know that 20K feels reasonable for me to actually attain. I'm not going to just do this because you want to be a motivational speaker and like tell me that I need to go big, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I set the goal where I set it. But yeah.
Awesome. So what inspired? Because I feel like Goals and Shit reminds me. I mean, it's definitely its own thing, but it's just kind of this new crop of these sort of like shows like Rami and
love Rami.
Even like something more silly like Broad City and stuff, but these kind of stories where the creators are in it and it's kind of loosely based on their life, but they change a few details and it kind of mixes like comedy and drama and stuff. Were those like, what was some of your inspirations directly?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great example. Rami especially, of course, wasn't out when we started Goals and Shit, but Broad City was, Insecure was an inspiration for us as well. That's really interesting, though, because Insecure and Goals and Shit are so different.
Yeah.
But the amount of pitch meetings that I would go to, and they'd be like, oh, it's like Insecure. It's like, oh, just because we're two black women.
Yeah.
I mean,
Don't you
we're the
hate
same
that?
show.
Yeah.
It's really interesting for black creators right now because everyone wants to like be diverse and create content around us, but then because we just have, I mean, this is for everyone's project. You go into a pitch meeting and you're like, it's like this movie meets this movie.
That's all they all they want to know is it's what meets what.
Yeah.
That's all they can kind of frame it in those meetings.
So I had to like suck it up and say, yeah, it's like Insecure means the Mindy Kaling show or the Mindy Project, you know?
That's
like
when you have to get really
Spin it,
outlandish and just start really combining just like influences that are just either so like viscerally or just emotionally like counterintuitive that like they're like, wait, can you unpack that more? Like I need to know more because that's not doing enough for me. You know? Like you did what they wanted, but you're like luring them in a little bit more, you know?
Yeah. But we had some, there's such great content coming out of filmmakers right now, and part of the reason I wanted to create Goals and Shit is because I see that there's more agency around being a creator, not just being an actor. You're at the whim of some studio, some producer, whoever likes you. But if you can be your own authority, there's just more power there, which is part of the reason I'm focusing more on writing and directing now. Just because I've always been a leader, a creator, I've been the initiator, and so waiting for someone to validate me just doesn't work.
And that's kind of the spirit of the show, even though it's a different career, but that's what I love about it too. It kind of captures that sort of millennial like entrepreneurial spirit where it's like we're all creating jobs for ourselves.
Yes.
You know,
so much of
the
that.
hustle
it's
economy.
super relatable. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
know?
I think especially with pandemic at hand and everything, the amount of people that are creating their own businesses and ideas. I created my new LLC again. I had one in New York, and then closed that, and now I have Supernormal Ventures that I'm working under.
Awesome.
So yeah, just creating and being your own authority, I think is a really important thing for us.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So as far as Goals and Shit. So where's the outlook on that? So you got the season 1 done, right?
Yes.
So what's next? Like what happens with that?
Yeah, so we have it on YouTube now, and the truth is I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen for sure.
What are you trying to do?
what I'm trying to do is get into the hand of producers, get some write-ups about it. So we have a publicist that we're working with now to get it to different outlets, get some, news around it. Hey, it's use the buzzy terms. It's a Black woman in tech. Let's do it. Exploit it where we need to.
Use it, yeah.
And see what happens. Actually, I heard a really encouraging story. There was a digital series that was done, put it online. Nothing really happened around it. But then maybe a year later, they found a producer that had some connections and took it to ABC Go, their digital platform, and got $1 million budget to shoot the exact same show a year later. Just because of the right person. Wow.
So with Goals and
Disney
Shit,
money.
what did you design? What did you package it for? Like, if it could live anywhere and it was just totally up to you, and it was just literally just finding the slot where it's like, this is where I want to put it. Like, what did you make it for?
I think it would be great on a Hulu. I think it'd be great on Amazon. It would be great on HBO. I know if it was a little more edgy, we can get edgy with it. Then I think it'd be great for HBO.
You're talking like 20, 30-minute episodes?
Yeah. 30-minute max, dark comedy about a woman who just... I don't think we see enough women, Black women specifically, that have privilege. Especially with what we are seeing right now. The idea of Black people being, so downtrodden, so we're being hunted in the streets. I mean, police brutality is so real, and I'm glad that we're fighting against it. But there are middle class and upper class Black folks that have parents that pay for everything until you tell them to stop. Like, that happens.
So true.
And I don't think we talk about what privilege can look like for a Black person. But then also the interesting thing is when that is taken away from you. What does that mean for someone? Just seeing that from a Black perspective, I think is interesting and new.
Are you privileged? Are you the privileged? Did you grow up in the privilege?
Yeah, I grew up that way.
Okay,
and
so it's very relatable, like from your lens. Like, this is...
and like a lot of my college friends and people that I grew up with grew up like that as well. And so I just, so it's a real story. It's a real person's identity. But, I think that moving out of that space of, I think privilege in general, when you don't use it for good, can just be so self-serving and not helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, it really allows you to open up your viewpoint of the world, if you use it right, but also at the same time, it can block you up and close you off completely.
I mean,
it's a catch-22,
Yeah, I mean, it's capitalism. It's crazy, but
yeah. But that's a big push I've been hearing in Hollywood is not just representation, but different types of representation, not pigeonholing a group of people and portraying them in a certain way, time and time again. Yeah. I think that's super important.
Exactly. Yeah. And a show like Rami is so interesting to get into a specific perspective of a male Muslim's experience, because that's not every Muslim's experience, right? But we get to peek into that world in ways that we haven't before. Yeah. And so I'm excited to see more nuanced stories from all backgrounds, and continue to amplify the voices of people. A friend of mine is from Appalachia. She's a white woman who grew up small town, coal mining, and made a feature about that. And that's interesting to me too, to see that specific story that we don't see.
Life.
Super niche,
weird slice of life.
Who is that?
Her name's Andy Morrow.
What's the name of the movie?
Can't tell you the name of the movie. I forget the name of the movie.
It's not done yet.
Oh no, it's out, but I'm just not gonna lie. Her name is Andy Morrow.
You just can't say what it is.
You can watch it.
Dig in.
You can
All right.
check her out. Yeah. I wish I could pull it, but it's about Appalachia, and it was good.
So, Goals and Shit, you said it started out as a multi-dimensional thing?
Well, she would go between realities.
Okay. Because I just working on the one that's out, I'm like, how did you make that jump from that to what is out now?
Yeah, so we realized it wasn't meaty enough for what we really wanted it to become. So jumping between worlds, the initial story was just her and her pursuit of different business ideas, but bringing in different storylines is what we saw could make it more dynamic, more interesting. So we wanted to amplify the story of different, Black experiences. So my co-star in the show, Essie Yamwa, she plays Carrie. She's a first-generation Ghanaian American. So we really brought in her storyline and what her culture experiences, so that was important to us to not just stay with that specific story, but make it broader and bigger. And with any show that we see, it's not just one person that we're following. We're seeing different perspectives, which, just makes the show better. But so we made it more so we made it more realistic, but we still wanted to have some of those absurd elements, just not the like multi-dimensional experience.
I was gonna say like two things, like quickly going back to Rami. I love that, and this is what he did on the show too, because he created it and it's kind of about his life. I love how so he has his group of friends on the show is like his actual friends in real life. Before he was famous or anything, and I love that that's what you do too. Is like you kind of a lot of it is like people that you are friends with and have real. It's like it's really close to your real world, even though it's like changing details. That was interesting. And then going back to like the, I feel like Atlanta too, to a certain extent, just because what I love about that show that I think Goals and Shit does too, is there's like an overarching storyline, but it's very like vignette-y. Like there's like entire episodes of Atlanta that's just it's weird little side story that doesn't really mean, it's just like all these weird like happenings to these characters as there's like a slow overarching storyline. And I think that similar kind of what you were doing with that too is really cool.
I mean, in the writer's room, so Cleisha Gonzalez was one of our writers and producers, and so it'll be Essie, Cleisha, and I, 3 Black chicks with very different experiences, but like some similar through lines. And we just be sitting in my apartment, just like chopping it up and seeing what we could pull from our own experiences. And there were several times where I was like, oh my God, I'm selling too much. I'm saying too much. But in the end, it made it really authentic and people engaged with it and saw themselves in it. And the amount of DMs and emails that I would get from people that were like, thank you so much for telling the story. This motivates me to continue on my journey. This feels like me. Awesome. Was really motivating, and that held me, through a lot of really personal, challenging experiences with the show and just in my life, in general. And being a creator, when you're going through a lot in your own personal life, we don't talk about that enough. Like going and pushing through when you got to like pay bills, do your own stuff like that, on top of being a creator is a lot. So
I was going to ask, you said you've gotten messages from people. So this is kind of an interesting thing. Where did you say you're from originally?
Tallahassee, Florida.
So do you have like a hometown following?
It's so interesting.
It's a little weird how that works, right?
Yeah. Is it the same for you?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. And it's weird how over time it kind of manifests and
they're so excited.
Yeah, I mean, like, and obviously, like, if you put any effort into cultivating it, it's so easy to stir up and drum up any, interest, and like, it's just a really cool. I think from like a filmmaker's perspective, it's a really cool leverage point that not enough independent filmmakers take advantage of, and that's what I was going to ask is like, did you rely on that at all when you were raising money for your film?
Yeah, actually, it's a great point. So Essie and I grew up together. We've been best friends since we were 11 years old. So middle school, and we both went to the same university, FAMU. Oh, wow. So for the crowd fund, went back to Tallahassee for our homecoming, and our homecoming is like a big deal. It's party central. It's everyone coming back together. It's Greeks. It's like student government. It's all of the whoever. So it was a great experience for us to go back. Party with our friends, but then also promote the show. And then I got to go back to our journalism school and do like, I was like teaching and talking about the show. Wow. Yeah. And that's like cool. Talking about social media with some of the journalism students. And that was really trippy to be like, oh my God, I'm old enough to be like your elder.
Yeah. Well, there's also,
that was crazy.
Alex, there's also a weird thing when you like go to like these non-hub cities, these regional cities, and it's like they're city enough that they have like filmmakers, but they don't have like the same quality of training that we have available like in LA and New York. And so it's like it's always weird, like you can be the same age as these people and go like teach them, and it feels like you've been doing stuff for some very conditionally, but sometimes years more, because it's just such a different culture of work out here versus like some of these other regional markets. I just didn't know if that was something you like saw when you went back to Tallahassee.
Well, something really cool about Tallahassee, they have Florida State University's film school, which is one of the top in the nation. Okay. And I was in a CannesCon, whatever. I feel like we talked about that.
We don't know.
Before the show, yeah.
Cannes.
The French Film Festival.
Yeah, but like a Cannes films, festival selected project came out of Florida State University that I starred in when I was like 19.
Wow.
So there's quality projects being made in Tallahassee. So I was a part of the film community in Tallahassee. So even though it's not same as New York or LA, that was a great training ground. I mean, I was a PA for people's like features and shorts in Tallahassee. Like, can I please come on set and like move an apple box? Where do you want me? You know?
Right. And that was probably a misdirected question, because I do know a lot of filmmakers from Florida. It is one of those weird states where it's like, if you're not from one of, you know, these 5 places that everyone else in LA is from, you're from Florida, you know, like
a lot of Florida people out here, you know, we're not all crazy, even though the news says otherwise.
If you're not from Wisconsin,
Florida
you know.
man.
Florida man. Yeah.
Florida man.
Crazy.
It's funny that you have such a, because I feel like people either go, I have a great hometown following and I love all those people, or they say, fuck that place, I don't ever want to go back there, I don't want anything to do with
You shouldn't, and I don't think you should ever be that filmmaker.
I don't think anyone should be that
I mean,
way.
you shouldn't,
but those are the
there
only 2
are.
ways it goes. There's no middle ground, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's your experience. I mean, I grew up with a really supportive creative community, and I started doing theater camps at like 9. My family always supported my creative endeavors. I grew up in church, and that was really supportive of me, even though I've done like some wild stuff. And oh my God, I have so many pastors in my family, and they're like, goals and shit. You know, some people say they're saved, but they're not really saved, you know? Yeah.
Goals and stuff?
Goals and stuff. Oh my gosh.
Goals and things.
Yeah, right? But overall, I grew up with, you know, seeing a lot of artists and alternative lifestyles as well. We had some kind of pockets of Tallahassee where there were like some real alternative people, and I was like dancing around campfires with people with my shoes off and being like, I'm out here, you know? So I could have that experience there too, which I think just gave me a good foundation to feel like I can achieve what I want to outside of that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great that you were able to like find that somewhere close to home, that you were able to cultivate, you know, some of your interests. But I mean, so like, let's take it back even further. What moved you into this craziness, this film life?
This film life.
Because I mean, you know, like obviously you grew up in Tallahassee, so you had the resources available, but like, you know, what turned the switch on to this? Like what?
Yeah. I just couldn't get away from it. I just knew.
But why?
It was just something within me. So, you know, when I was a kid, I was always very theatrical. I have very charismatic, loud parents. So I think I just got that gene. But yeah, I've just always loved art. I was 7 years old when I wrote my first poem, and knew that I loved writing and storytelling. And I was, you know, the kid writing stories about like the, you know, other dimensions and space, and my teachers being like, Alex is a little one of my teachers was like, Alex is a little different, and told my mom that. So I was, you know, a kid loving storytelling and sitting under my desk in my bedroom, like traveling to other places, literally, in my mind. And so I've just always loved it. And then in college, I studied journalism. That was like the closest we had to film at my university. But we would like steal the equipment on weekends and make short films.
Awesome.
And I just knew that I needed to tell stories for my life. And even, you know, now I have like a day job in marketing as well, you know, kind of holding it down that way. But I'm writing and telling stories and always gathering narratives. And my mind is always going on what is a compelling way to tell this experience that I just had. You know,
working in marketing, I'm sure that's helpful too. Like,
it's helpful, you know, for my Roth IRA and for my investments.
Do you find that helps when you're sort of kind of doing a grassroots social media based launch of goals and shit? Do you feel like that helps you at all?
Yeah,
knowing that.
Yeah, I've done some. So before I started doing marketing, like professionally, I was doing some creative directing in New York, it just helps you to recognize how to concisely tell a story and how to reach specific audiences. And of course, you know, learning how to market on social media is helpful.
Target your audience.
Paid ads. So doing marketing has been helpful to get the word out. Yeah. So yes, it has been helpful in that regard, for sure. And I'm definitely going to save money and use these tools as I tell my stories to, you know, in the future. But yeah.
How do you so you have like a 9 to 5, that is not, and so you're not like working for a film company marketing, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it is a 9 to 5 marketing job.
Yeah.
So, like I think that I think the audience would love to know, like, how do you, you live in LA and you still balance like this crazy, film world film industry with a 9 to 5 job. How do you do that? Like mentally, emotionally, the drain of it?
Yeah. So that's it's pretty new for me. I started working in marketing in cannabis last year, which is a burgeoning industry that's been great so far. And for me, it was actually really helpful because I needed some more structure and community. So much of, being a writer, director, a lot of it is, creating your things with your friends and stuff like that. But unless you get on a show or you get something picked up, it's a little bit hard to make it like your day-to-day thing and make it really fulfilling for you. Yeah. There's so much empty space in my days and trying to fill it with things. And so for me, working with a team is really helpful. I'm such an extrovert people person. So being with a team, getting things done, it actually fulfills that need in me so I can use my creative kind of loner energy for writing and not feel like that's all that I have. You get what I'm saying? So for me, it's been helpful to get the like buzzy energy. Let's make this deadline. Let's do this thing. Get that energy out. But then also have that introverted space where I can go and create in my own time and also not feel the pressure of I need this to go now or otherwise, like, who am I?
Yeah, it's not a make or break thing.
It's not a make or break thing.
Yeah.
So that's really been helpful for me. And like, yeah, the desire is to get back to full-time creative endeavors, but I'm okay with right now recognizing the season I'm in. I think a lot of us, we can get really caught up in like, if I'm not doing this thing all the way right now, then like, I'm not really an artist. But you have to recognize where you are in your life and try to look outside of yourself, like get macro. 3-5 years from now, you'll be thankful that you have a really padded savings account and that you have like investments and that you're good and you feel fulfilled and you feel useful and helpful. And you can also do what you need to do on the side if you're really regimented and honor yourself and your time and say, okay, if I'm going to work for this person for 8 hours, I need to work for myself for another 4 or 5 at night,
I think you really nailed it. I think you really nailed the point. You were just getting at like, sorry.
So many things.
Yeah, you were making so many good points that I lost the point. No, but you were just getting at the point that like you're not using all of your energy. Like you feel like you actually can hone what creative energy you have because you have the security of like a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And that's I feel like that's a really interesting thing because personally as like a freelancer, I've been a freelancer for like 5 years, and like great and everything, but like nobody talks about the downside of how stressful it is, and and so like there's this element of being a freelancer where like especially as a creative, it's always kind of like the clock's ticking. Whenever you're not in pre-pro or finishing out the film that you wrote, directed, produced, whatever the hell it is that you're doing, it always kind of feels like, shit, what am I doing? Like, am I using my time good enough? Because if I'm not, I might as well get a day job where I can be making, like, turning this waste of time into money, And so I think it's an interesting point because so many people, like, dream of being able to leave like their 9 to 5s, and I know a lot of like our listeners are gonna are people in these very similar situations, like dreaming of leaving this 9 to 5 to go live this like novelty film industry life. And it's like I mean it definitely has its upsides, but like it doesn't, it's not without its downsides either.
It's also not overnight too. I mean, I feel like we are kind of how like media is right now. Everyone thinks it's just like an overnight thing.
Instant gratification.
Everything's viral
kind of
and it's like it's more of a marathon. It's not a sprint. So
yeah,
you gotta.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting at. Like, do I want to work a 9 to 5 forever? No.
Well, okay. No, right, nobody does, but it does. It gives you some security, though.
It gives you security, and it's okay. And like I said, it's okay to say it's a marathon. This is a season. I will use this as I can. What connections can I make here? How can I build myself here? And have your exit plan. But
you're using it.
Not to say don't hustle though. I mean, still hustle.
Yeah.
I mean, know that it's not gonna.
Yeah.
You're using it as a training ground though, and being very like acknowledging of the fact that like maybe you're not ready to make that jump and to make that commitment, and this is a better place where you can creatively excel and like build your skills. And I just think that that's important because, again, it's like, it's easy to go be a freelancer. You go quit your job.
Yeah.
You know, you're a freelancer, you know, but being productive and making something of it and having a lifestyle that is more efficient than the 9 to 5 and balancing, you know, like the film industry on the side. I mean, I just think that there's something to be said there. And especially like with where the economy's at right now, there is not much film work, you know, so good, like kind of good luck making a living in film right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everyone's story is different. And, there's beauty in everyone's path, and everyone has such a different way to get into. I remember, you know, years ago asking the question, like, how do I get into the industry? And like, what's the best way? And everyone being like, there's no way. There's no one way to do anything in life. And settling into that as like a truth gives some freedom when you recognize that you have your own specific journey that's going to be your own really fulfilling, like, testament one day. Like, hey, I did this and this was the way, and then someone can see that as a little bit of a breadcrumb trail for their own journey. You know? Yeah.
So what do you see? Okay, so best case scenario, like 5 years from now, what do you like? What would be your goal? Is start like running your own show that you star in, or leaving acting aside completely, or what do you think?
Yeah. So 5 years from now, I think dream would be that Supernormal is a bigger company that has some other productions under it that we've, you know, created and sold and in production for different projects.
Yeah.
Having my own company outside of that, like I've loved entrepreneurship and product development for a while too, so I have some ideas around that too.
Oh, cool.
So for me, financial freedom is really interesting and exciting. So I would love to have properties and, you know, part of the reason that I think financial freedom is important is so that you can really feel grounded, secure, not have to think about that. I think there's just so much stress that can come when you're, you know, freelance creative. If you let yourself kind of sink into that, which I've been in that space.
The job to job hustle. Yeah. It's nice to have like side avenues of income.
And I think especially in this time we're seeing where, okay, if I have these tools, let me create several different ways, you know, of income and fulfillment. But yeah, so I think Supernormal being like a bigger company, having clients, you know, I'd love to get back into acting more intently and starring in something. But we'll see. I think keeping a little loose right now, but I just want to be full-time creating and really fulfilled in that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Alex, we just have a couple questions we like to ask everybody, you know, as we kind of wind down the interview here and kind of, you know, get to the ramp off here. You know, since we have like a combination audience of, you know, people who work in the industry, people who don't work in the industry, and just, you know, like film, you know, I think one of our really like fun questions is what was the earth-shattering moment for you? When was your industry break moment where you were like, it either ruined movies for you, it got you into the industry, you know, like when was that earth-shattering, the lightning hit moment?
Feel like I have to be in this industry?
Not even, but just maybe it changed your perspective on something, changed your lens, you know, something that you could only know by having done it.
I think when I directed my first short in New York, that was a big moment for me because I was at the helm of a project that had like 30 crew members, and they're all looking at me for the next decision to be made. And I knew that I could do this and that I could lead that team. I don't know if that's answering your question, but it was a big moment for me as a creator to say, you know, I have the agency to do this, and that I have the ideas, and that I can believe in my ideas enough, and that the more that I believe in it, people around me will as well. And so that was a really big moment for me.
Did you stumble much when you first stepped into directing? I mean, I think that's always an interesting thing, is like, think back to the first thing you directed, you know, and I'm, you know, self-reflecting, and it's like, are you even reminiscent of that director anymore?
No.
Is that person right? Is that person you?
No.
And what changed? Like, who are you now by comparison?
I'm more of a student now. I think there has to be a certain level of like ignorant confidence that you have as a creator when you first start out.
When you get into it,
it's the ego.
You're like, I can do this. Like, I can do anything. You know, and
you need the confidence to compete with Steven Spielberg. You know,
you need the confidence to be like, he did that like amazing cool shot. I can do that with my like.
We're all crazy for thinking that we could be successful.
We're all like mini narcissists.
No way.
Oh yeah.
100%.
100%.
A little bit narcissist. So I'm more of a student now, and I recognize that I don't know what I don't know, and that there's a lot to learn. So when I step into situations, there's much more of a listener and a learner attitude that I have, and I want to really honor the expertise of those around me. And a lot of people know more than me, and I'm excited to recognize that and say, hey, how can we grow together? Producers, writers, the PA, the sound guy, like everyone.
That is so important.
Yeah.
Like literally so important. Like the point that you're, hitting on is like it is ultimately a collaboration.
Yeah.
And it's like there is never this static moment of yourself in which you aren't growing, aren't learning, aren't like evolving your skill.
Even the top filmmakers, like it's a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah.
Totally.
If you're 90 years old, you are probably guaranteed at the top of your game by comparison to 30-year-old self, because you have spent the last 60 years getting better at this skill. And I just think, the humbleness and modesty, that you really need to have as a filmmaker in order to continue to grow and learn your skill is like, it's so important, I just think like, when I realized like how hard it was to sell a movie, I think that was my, that was like my break point where it was like, oh my God, like nobody cares about my movie because you know what? Like there's 100 that's going to be made this year and there's going to be 100 made next year and 300 made the next year,
I think where we get caught up is that we need people to care to feel a validation. Of course we want someone to care so that we can like make the money from the film and like continue to create the next one, but something that I've removed myself from is my identity being based on how I do in the industry.
Artist gratification.
If we can separate our identity and our value from what we create, we'll be able to create from a much freer space.
And that's something I've been like learning to actually grow into the past few years. I've always had like, I love my work. If I'm allowed to work, I will work 100 hours a week. I will work until the job is done, And so, but with that, the downside is your identity becomes tied to your career, your work. And all of a sudden it's like, who am I if I'm not the line producer? Who am I if I'm not the producer, the director, the writer? Like what if the film industry just vanished, like our country collapsed and there's no film? Like who are you? You can't be in that position.
Or even just like being a creative writer, like you have to live a little bit to have something to write about,
Exactly.
So
experience.
You got to go through some things, man. And the last few years of my life have been like going through things and being like, yes, I feel like I know who I am outside of the things that I'm creating and I can bring that juice to it. A woman I spoke to a few years ago was like, Alexandria, she wasn't like a medium or anything. I know I did this hand and I'm like, but she was like, Alex, you're about to enter a refining fire. And I did not know what that meant.
What is it? Refining fire?
A refining fire.
Oh.
Yeah. She said that to me and she was right. And I'm out of that refining fire and I'm like, wow, thank you to like everything in the universe for it. Because I can bring it to, of course, myself and the people that I'm around, but also my work. And so I'm excited to see in 5 years how my work reflects who I've become through this,
Totally.
Which is great.
So would you say 5 years is about how long it takes to get acclimated to
LA?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've been here 3. The first 2 were really difficult, and I feel like the last year has been really great. But I definitely think it takes time to get acclimated to LA.
Yeah, people are always so surprised when they like, they like haven't like, walked into Warner Brothers and gotten that picture deal 8 months into living here, and it's like it doesn't work like that. Like not
anymore.
I don't know what you saw in the movies, kids, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's been great. I've actually been able to pitch at Warner for like Stage 13, and I've been able to pitch at some places.
In your face, Michael.
Well, no, I said that because nothing was bought, but got to pitch it and have the experience of like kind of walking in there with your legs strutting out like I'm about to kill it, and didn't work out that way. So you can get close and still fall on your face and just have to like keep picking yourself back up.
What was it like to pitch at Warner?
Really cool. I mean, people are people. Thankfully, I did a project with Fox last year, and that got picked up, and they financed a short for me. But
Can you demystify that a little bit? Because I mean, you know, like I like recently just had, you know, like one of my like first interviews as a producer at Disney, and I was so nervous walking into it, only to walk out and be like, oh wow, like these dudes are just making movies like these dudes, you know, like it feels like so much more buttoned up and different. It's not. You're just going on and driving onto a lot with a security guard instead.
Yeah. What I've learned from those experiences is that you just need to know your story in and out. You need to know your audience. I mean, because so much of it is driven by who the audience is and how they can target people, it's much different than the indie world where we're like, I have this idea and I love this thing and I want to tell this story. It's like, well, is this, you know, 21 to 35? Is this the person in the
You don't get to just be an art fart and just be like, here's a cool script. You
yeah,
know,
not
like,
as much. Not as much. A lot of it is like, how can we market this?
It's more business to it.
Yeah, so like knowing who the audience is and what the real story is behind it that we can like target for marketing. Unfortunately, like those things are real.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's a good point, because you know you have like this background in marketing, so marketing probably is kind of like no skin off you, you know. But like most filmmakers are not built as marketers, as distributors, and they honestly want nothing to do with that, because that's the boring shit.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's just really interesting, like that you're kind of turning the angles of your own narratives into like this marketing spin, probably because of your background, but like, you know, you don't classify yourself necessarily as a producer, so you shouldn't have to be thinking about marketing, but you are. You are.
Yeah, I think naturally, I think I do. Not with everything I'm writing. Like the feature I'm writing now, I don't know who's going to buy it. I don't know who's going to produce it. I don't know. Like, it's so dark and quiet, but I want to write it. And so that's why I'm writing it. But I just when you going to those studios and there's just always something else at play. Yeah. When they're financing something. So that's important to remember.
Does that ever get in the way of the creative process? Like having that brain also, like, can't do this because this is not going to go this way. They're not going to like this.
I try not to. When people have asked me to like pitch stories, then sometimes that can come in. But with my own personal projects, I thankfully know. Yeah, I'm able to separate it. But it can get there, and you're in your head about what's going to be bought. But I mean, they also want your specific voice. So when I went in to pitch Goals and Should We pitched at Soul Pancake, and you know, didn't get picked up, but they wanted to know my story and being as authentic as I could be about who I am and what this story is and what it means to me was more interesting to them than it. They trusted and they were hoping that it would fit into those boxes that they have.
Yeah,
you know?
and I mean, that's a really important point to hit right there, is that it's not all about the marketing. Like, you can't go in there and be like, I wrote this script and it is 100% geared towards this. It has to be a narrative. Because, so for example, a couple years ago, I pitched at a film festival, you know, in front of some judges, some financiers. And, you know, of course, talked way too fast, you know, because it was like one of my first times pitching in front of financiers, you know, this is a few years ago. And I was just like, you know, it was a project that I really, really liked. So I was, you know, like extra just really wanting to nail it home.
We're going to go, and this guy's going to jump out of a building, and then the helicopter is going to be like, bam!
And you know, I pitched this, like, you know, 3-minute, like this 3-minute pitch about this horror film I wrote. And you know, and I basically geared the pitch because I was literally under the assumption, like, I want to get this damn thing financed, and you get this damn thing financed by making sure that the financiers feel like I can sell this. Like, basically, like, I don't care if it's a good script, like, if I put money into it, I can sell it. So I basically geared my whole pitch on this marketing angle, pitched to these 3 financiers. 2 of the 3 financiers literally looked at me and they're like, I don't even know what this movie's about. Like, you seem to know how you're going to sell it, but I don't know what the movie's about. And then the third the third guy who I was pitching to, who I felt like I had the most luck with, he goes, give me your email. We're going to stay in touch. I want to know more about the story next time, but you definitely know how to sell a movie. You know, and so I think it's just like an important middle ground that it's like, I went into that thinking like, I need to sell this, and then I probably oversold the shit out of it. Not so much in like the overbearing way of just selling it, just in the fact of like focusing too much on the marketing aspects over the creative. Like, that is still so important. We ultimately are storytellers.
The balancing act of like, it's a weird art form where you need to be able to sell it on a high scale. So it needs to be personal, but also needs to be marketable.
Yep.
So that is an interesting like
Yeah, leaving it to them to interpret how to market it, but I'm just saying, like, knowing that is something that is under the undercurrent.
There has to be
That's
an
right.
It has to be an underpinning. And that's all it really
like
needs
that is what that's part of what their goal is. But of course,
I mean,
it looks good. That's their goals and shit. But of course, they're all looking to be the producer, the VP at the studio that has this new prolific artist, right? So they want to be the person to say they discovered whoever. So you coming in as the most interesting version, authentic version of you. And I've had meetings with writers and writer agents, and them saying, I don't care what you're writing, just make it different and interesting. So I was like, so what's kind of on your roster? Like, what are you looking for? And they're like, don't write anything like what we have, write something different. Because if we wanted what we have already, we wouldn't be meeting with you.
And they're investing in you, not just like maybe one night script you have. They're looking for that long term. They want to discover you. And
absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question, a fun question I like to ask. So, do you have like a crazy, like, it could be industry related, like a crazy audition that went horribly wrong, or an experience on set where something crazy happened, or even just like a crazy story from being in LA for 3 years?
Yeah. Oh man. Oh gosh. Okay. I don't have any horror audition stories. Thankfully, I've never been like asked to crawl on the ground or anything. I keep hearing that people have those experiences. I haven't had that. But one short that I directed was a really dark piece called The Way To, and I had one of my best friends star in it, Maxine Muster, and in the short, she got like brutalized in a bathroom while she was pregnant. It was like a very dark period of life. It was like a really
starting strong here.
Yeah, it was like a really dark short, and that was really intense emotionally. I mean, on Goals and Shit, at one point we had a really crazy day where our first AD didn't show up for an hour and a half. That was really hard. That was really difficult.
Yep.
But we made it work, So I think I haven't had anything crazy happen where like people didn't show up at all or things went really awry.
Do you have like any funny stories of anything, or maybe something to like watch out for people there?
Oh yeah, funny stories. Oh my gosh.
It can be no.
Well, yeah, because like the only thing I'm thinking of right now with Reborn, which is the short I shot last year, we had to convince this guy at a cemetery to allow us to shoot there, and they shoot like major shows. Gosh, I can't remember the name of one of them. You would know it, but they shoot like major shows, so they charge $20,000 plus to use the cemetery.
Is this over in Altadena?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know it?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, you know the place.
Oh, everyone.
Have you shot there?
Oh yeah, of course.
Like for your own personal projects or for like bigger shows?
Bigger shows.
Because they charge a lot, right? Yeah. We're like, we got a little short, they gave us, 5 figures, but like not a lot of money. Like, okay, we got to go in here and, I got to connect this to this guy. So I was like, hey, y'all hang back. All right, producers, everybody hang back. Let me like work my magic.
I got this.
Yeah, let me, so had to go in and be like, hi, I just have this little short that we're shooting, Oh, there's no major like production company behind it. And, I had to tell some stories.
Yeah.
But I was like, what can you do it for? And he gave it to us for far less because, the location. I think people may know it. I'm not going to say the name of it. But they gave it to us for far less than what they charged the other shows. But, some of those like, okay, I don't know anyone else here. There's no one in the car waiting for me. There's no like budget behind this. So you have to work it how you can.
Yeah, stretch your dollar.
Oh yeah.
Drop the student in there.
I've pulled the film.
It's a student
film.
Yeah, that one always works.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Alex. Well, why don't you let everyone know where we can check out some more information about you, about your show, about what you're doing, and what's to come.
Yeah, cool. So I have a website, alexandriacollins.com. You can email me through that. On Instagram, I am at ACSCollins. So everything I do, you can find through that. Goals and Shit is linked there. I post about Reborn there.
And we'll make sure we put all that in the description so everyone can find it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it.
That was great.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
me.
being on the show
fun.
today. And is there anything else you wanted to say before you took off here?
Keep creating. Don't let what's happening in the world stop you from telling your stories.
Yep.
And there's a reason that cliche is said so often by successful creatives. It's because it is
Thanks
legitimate.
For saying it's a cliche. God, I mean it.
Damn it, Michael.
Love it.
All right.
Cool.
Hey, thanks for being on the show.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
That was great.